Davis. I have the privilege of being the superintendent of the Woodridge schools, and I want to thank you for coming to join us for this event that we believe is an important forum for our community. And I really do hope that it's valuable for you tonight, as we have created an agenda that I hope will shed some light on Ohio's school funding scheme that is really difficult to understand and to explain. So, you know, every district has its own story. Every district has its own unique situation. And in many ways, the Woodridge School District is an exemplar when it comes to school funding, at least in the way that we exemplify how broken the system is here in the state of Ohio. As you'll learn tonight, we get very little support from Columbus to run our schools. We're forced to follow our mandates, to abide by all the rules and regulations, but we get very little support from Columbus to carry them out. We've been able to maintain a strong tradition of academic, co-curricular, and extracurricular excellence, despite the fact that we get such little support, largely because of the ongoing support of our local taxpayers. We are who we are, despite the fact that our state provides so little to us. We are who we are because of the strong relationship and support that we have from our local community. To kind of begin and paint the picture for you, I want to tell you a story about something I did last year. I was making a presentation to a group last year and was preparing some data, and in doing so I made a list of all 612 school districts in our state. I wrote down the names of all 612 districts on a sheet of paper, big sheet of paper. I was curious, as part of my research, to see how much support the state provides to each district. So I created this list. The list was arranged such that the district that gets the most state support was listed at the top, and the district that gets the least state support was at the bottom. In essence, using the state's own terminology, the list showed Ohio's public school districts in order from the poorest at the top to the wealthiest at the bottom. Ohio does that by figuring out the property value of each district. And so in essence, I was listing districts based on property value from poorest to richest. And as I made that list, I was somewhat stunned, even though I already had a sense of where Woodridge fell on the list. It was amazing to me that we were 10th from the bottom. Remember, it went from poorest to richest. We were 10th from the bottom. In other words, there are only 9 public school districts in the state of Ohio that have a higher property value than Woodridge. What this means is that there are only 9 public school districts in Ohio that get less state support than the Woodridge schools. Think about that. Woodridge is considered to be one of the most property-wealthy school districts in our state. They think it's good news, I guess. The methodology that is used in determining the placement on that list is the same methodology that the state uses to figure out how much they're going to support public schools, based on property value. And that just doesn't work. Think of it another way. Think about another system that our state uses to determine eligibility for a program, free and reduced lunch. Think about that one. How could one of the state's most property-rich school districts have a free and reduced lunch percentage of 40%? Ours is 40%, but yet we are the 10th wealthiest school district based on property value in our state. We certainly are not a wealthy district. As you think about that, and as you hear what we're going to present to you tonight, I think you'll agree. As you'll see tonight, Ohio's public school funding system is flawed. You're going to learn a little bit tonight about the history of state funding, how we got here. You'll see some shocking statistics, not only about Woodridge, but about all of the schools in our region. You'll see how challenging it is for the board and for the administrative team and staff to run a district that receives so little support from our state. And perhaps most importantly, you'll learn how you can help to advocate for reform. We're going to end our presentation tonight with a question and answer period to enable you to ask specific questions about this topic. You'll also notice on the tables there are some 3x5 cards. If there are specific questions you have that you'd like us to research and find answers for that maybe aren't appropriate or you don't want to ask them in public, jot them down on the card, leave it on the table, and we'll get back to you if you provide your contact information. Tonight is all about giving you answers. We sincerely want you to understand why we in the Woodridge schools appear to be on the ballot so often. To get us started tonight, I want to introduce Mr. Scott Carlo. Scott and his wife Colleen are active parents in our district, and I'm sure a number of years ago Scott would never have dreamt that coming to a community meeting because he was concerned about a levy that was on the ballot at the time would mean that he would become the chairman of the levy committee for several successful campaigns since. In addition to working on those levy campaigns and the current one, issue 35, which is on the November ballot, Scott is also the president of the Woodridge Athletic Booster Club, devoting much of his time to the young people of our community. And he and his beautiful wife Colleen have two wonderful daughters who are students in our district. Take a minute to welcome Scott Carlo.
Thanks, Wally. Wally asked me to basically come and just give a brief little summary of why I volunteered for the levy committee and a little bit about myself. I was born in August of 19. He pretty much said I showed up to a board meeting after a second attempt at the levy failed. My kids were pretty young in the district. This was in 2011, and I was concerned about what was going to happen for their future education. But also as a property owner, I was concerned about what was going to happen to our district as a whole, because strong schools typically mean strong property values. And that's one of the reasons why we moved into Woodridge. And it was actually my first school board meeting that I attended, and Wally posed the question to his board members, I can't figure out why our levies are not passing. I didn't know the rules, and I just yelled from the audience that it was because of apathy. I felt that at the time, when my wife and I moved into the district, there was some school options that we could choose to send our kids to, and we looked at a few of those different options, but everybody that we talked to said, send your kids to Woodridge. You'll love it. We loved it. It is a great district. So that was the other reason why I went to this meeting, because if everyone loves this district so much, I couldn't understand why the levies weren't passing. And I really pinned it on this concept of apathy, because it's easy to say you love a district. It's a little bit harder to go and vote and agree to give more money to that district. And it's even harder, I think, to give your time and energy to actively support that district. So when I yelled apathy out, they responded with, could you stick around? And so I've been running the levies pretty much ever since. And it took us a couple times, when I got involved before we passed that levy. And I learned, and have continued to learn, a lot about the school funding, and it's really shocking. And I think you being here and hearing what I have heard since 2011, especially from the two gentlemen and our treasurer, about what makes Woodridge so unique and what is so broken with our school funding mechanism within the state. I hope you'll leave with a different attitude. I suspect some of you are here thinking that Woodridge is a problem when it comes to managing its money, or the fact that we're always asking for new money, that somehow we're broken as a district. I have family members who we have really spirited conversations because of their opinion. If we just continue to vote no in these districts, then the state will change their mind, and then they will support us, and they will realize voting yes, then the state's going to just keep what they're doing as is. So if we vote no, then the state will change their mind. And my response to him is, if you vote no, I suspect what the state will do is come in and say, well, your community doesn't seem to want a school district here, so your group go to Hudson, you go to Revere, you go to the Falls, and we'll just get rid of Woodridge. I don't really want that. I think there's something very unique about this district. Part of my efforts in promoting the district with the levy is to talk about the Woodridge community. We are spread across 9 different cities or municipalities. We have no downtown, so the community of Woodridge is its own unique entity that comprises of people from these different communities and is centered on this district. And it's very unique. I think the amount of diversity that we have in this school and watching my kids participate in numerous different programs and just seeing them be part of what I think is more of a real world experience is a really amazing thing, and I don't want to lose that. And I think most people that really truly do love this district don't want to lose that. And I think from a property value standpoint, most homeowners in their district will not want to lose that either. So I got involved primarily to, I guess, just do more than put a vote on a ballot. And once I got involved, then I began to really understand what was happening with the school funding mechanisms and decided that my job wasn't just to run levies and get people to vote, but really to start trying to change the community and get them to do more. So our levy committee isn't just about people coming together to pass levies. What we really want from people is to come and help us change the way this process is working, because it is broken. I would like to not be the levy chairperson. I would like to not have to be here every 5 years and beg people to come and vote for a levy and keep this broken system on life support the way it is now. So I think, again, this information you're going to learn tonight should hopefully have you leave here with pretty wide open eyes and perhaps you'll reach out to us and want to ask how you can do more. So, thank you.
His daughter's birthday tonight. She's a soccer player. So I think he wants to go down to the stadium and be with his family. But before he goes, I just want to personally thank you on behalf of the board and everyone else for the dedication you've had, not only on this levy, but the bond issue that passed on the first try, the levy that passed after several failures, in large part was due to you and the effort that you gave. So help me thank him, if you. Many of you know, if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter, that I'm a little outspoken when it comes to charter schools. One of the things that drives me crazy is a report that I'm sure will be referenced tonight that indicates the number of dollars that are deducted from school districts for kids attending community schools, charter schools, and the money that we lose as a result of that. Scott Carlo and I have talked on and on and on into the night at various occasions about ways that we can combat the loss of students to charter schools. And I'm sure one of our presenters tonight is going to talk a little bit more about that. One of the things that we have done as a district the last 2 summers is that we have created a postcard, a single postcard. And this postcard simply is an invitation to the students who choose charter schools to return home to Woodridge. So we take that list and we send those postcards out to those families, and then we follow it up with a phone call, personally inviting those kids to return to their home school district. 2 years ago, we sent out 68 postcards, I think. We got 11 kids back to the district. This past year, we sent out 59 postcards, and we got 15 kids back to the district. As the treasurer talks in a little bit about funding, I want you to think about the difference that simple postcard made in our funding stream here in our district. Simple little strategies like that can make a difference in inviting kids who for some reason have chosen some other option to return to their home school. So one day he and I were chatting about other strategies that might make a difference, and he said, you know, we ought to make t-shirts. I looked at him like, what are you talking about? And he said, no, think about it. This school choice thing is real across the state. People have choices. So what if we made a t-shirt that said school choice with a question mark on the front? Show them the shirt. The back of the shirt says, I choose Woodridge. So we are going to be marketing these shirts all over the place, and I can tell my friends who are here from other districts, and I know you're here, that Penny, my friend at Young's Screen Printing, is prepared to make that shirt for every district in Ohio. And it's my hope that we will have school districts from Toledo to Marietta, Ashtabula to Cincinnati, with people walking around wearing that shirt with their name on it to support public education in Ohio. We cannot continue to sit back and watch as our kids are bled from our public school districts for other options. We need to be the choice. We need to be the choice. That's the message we're preaching here in the Woodridge School District. And we're trying to make our program such that it's obvious that we're the choice. So when parents are looking where to send their kids to school, they keep them right here at home. Thanks, Scott. You can. It was your idea.
Thank you.
Those of you who have known me a long time, and there's one person in the room who's known me longer than anybody, we went to school together, right there, Becky Macko. We grew up together in the same neighborhood. This is my 30th year in education, and it's hard to believe. Kathy Moffat, can you believe it? 30 years. And in all that time, there have been a number of people that I can look back on and say, these are people that I want to be like. You know, teachers that I've had, or superintendents that I've worked with or for, or what have you. But statewide, some of you know I'm involved in a couple of organizations, and in talking with the leaders of those organizations, I learned a long time ago that these were people I want to be like. And so tonight I invited two of them, to be here to help us with this presentation for a number of reasons. One, they both have something to say that you need to hear, and also because they get it. They truly do get it. They understand the situation that we're in and that all public schools in Ohio are in. The first person I'd like to introduce is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Bill Phillis. Bill is the executive director of the Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding. His resume is so long that I'm not even going to begin to highlight it, other than to tell you that he has been a teacher, he's been a principal, he's been employed as one of the leaders of the Ohio Department of Education. He's had the ear of the legislature for a long time. I know he wishes they would listen more, but he certainly has had their ear. And he's working across the state to try to figure out how to make school funding more equitable. Some of you may have heard of the DeRolph decision. The DeRolph decision was a court case that came down from the Supreme Court that ruled that Ohio's school funding mechanism is unconstitutional. 4 times the Supreme Court said that. And the last time, the legislature sidestepped it, and unfortunately the fix never came. But I couldn't think of anybody more appropriate to invite here tonight to talk with you about our unique situation and how we got this way in Ohio than Bill Phillis. So, Bill, thank you for coming, and come up and enlighten us. Welcome.
Thank you, Wally. I'm not sure that this is my first or second visit to this district. Wally says he's been around 30 years, but in education, and which means that I have been involved in education 30 years when he started. So that really makes me feel, well, you're a young man. I mean, really young. I feel like I know this district. I feel like I know the Board of Education here because Wally brags about the district. Every place he goes, he brags about Woodridge. Every place he goes, he brags about the Board of Education. Now, that's why I kind of feel like I know something about this district. And when I read this little publication that he sent and I've seen it, and I pulled it off the web, about the programs here in Woodridge. This is a district where I want my grandkids to go. The opportunities here are stupendous. I just really appreciate Wally and his, not only his work in the district, but he has an advocacy for public education that reaches the state level, and he's influential among the superintendents with regard to this whole advocacy of public education, and I really appreciate that so very much. Now, I want to mention to you, right at the outset, I'm prejudiced. I'm biased, totally prejudiced. I love the public common school. I love our constitutional provision for this idea of a common school. The constitutional provision, Article 6, Section 2, says that the General Assembly shall secure by taxation or otherwise a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state. That concept is precious. It's almost sacred. That concept that says that all the children of all the people in every community in Ohio and every community in the nation is welcome at the common school. Everybody's welcome. Now, you don't have to go there. You don't have to go to the common school, but everybody's welcome. And that idea, there's one thing we need to know, and I'm going to give the big picture here and let others get into the weeds of, about the other stuff. But this whole idea of a common school, the idea of a public system, of a thorough and efficient public system, it is precious in my mind. Now, the state was challenged on this issue, one issue, the thorough and efficient system issue. You see, the Constitution doesn't say, the state shall provide a system of education. It says a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state. Now, it grieves me that we've been to court on this issue twice in Ohio, once in 1976 to 79, and then 1992 to 2002, during that latter period, a 10-year period. We've been there twice, each time challenging the constitutionality of the system. You see, go back to that idea. The state must secure a thorough and efficient system. Now, the state has in all of the Constitution, the state has one responsibility for funding. One. Only one. And you know what that is? The common school system. There's no other service of government that the state is required to perform. But schools, secure by taxation or otherwise, is a thorough and efficient system. Now, somebody said, well, why are you worried about this? Why don't you just go do something else? Well, I'm worried about it because there's a nexus between the common school system and democracy. This idea of compulsory education wasn't just some dumb idea that somebody 100 years ago had. They understood. Our forefathers and mothers understood that in order to have a democratic society, young people have to be educated. And they have to, all the children of all the people have to come together to learn together and become Americans together. And it grieves me that we have these private operations. Now obviously, I'm not opposed to private schools. You understand that. I'm on board. I was on the board of a private school one time, but that was not a publicly supported private school. And certainly wasn't a charter school. But this idea of chartering, and I think Michael was going to talk about that, the idea of chartering is an idea of isolation. You take the children over here in the corner someplace instead of bringing them all together. So they learn together and become Americans together, you see. And that's a very important concept now. So the state's responsibility is a fair and efficient system. I was with the State Department of Education after I was in the field as a superintendent principal teacher for 18 years. I spent 16 years in the State Department of Education as assistant superintendent of public instruction. And I had a pretty good, and I still have a pretty good grasp of what's going on in the state of Ohio with regard to education. But the problem is that sometimes, well, not sometimes, most of the time, when legislators get around the table, so to speak, in the legislature, they don't remember what the Constitution says about their responsibility to support the system. Now, their responsibility is to provide a thorough and efficient system. I can't emphasize that too much. Now, when I saw that, after spending 16 years at the State Department of Education as associate superintendent, when I saw that the system was broken, and by the way, Wally, it was broken more years ago than it is today. But when I saw the system was broken, I saw a group of superintendents and board members and boards of education that were challenging the state system. And so I put behind me the pretty decent salary, the state car, the amenities that go along with being a state official, put that behind me and joined this effort of these school district persons, these school districts that challenge the state. And that, that's not an easy thing to challenge the state of Ohio. Particularly when one party is in charge of the entire state house. And I'm not being negative about any particular party, but when we have one party in charge of the state house, it's pretty difficult to get a consensus on what ought to be. Okay, what really ought to be, what the Constitution, what's required of the Constitution. So I joined this group of districts, this coalition, and worked with the coalition, still work with the coalition, that sued the state. No one thought we'd win because there's, the court, the House, the governor's office, all one party, but we won. In 1997, we won. 2000, we won again. 2001, we won again. In 2002, we won again. And we've had some successes. As a result of the litigation, there are 1,200 new buildings across the state that wouldn't have been there had it not been for the litigation. However, it didn't go far enough. Schools are, in general, are better funded today than they were 20 years ago. But charters have entered the picture. And now all the growth, all the gain that we've made by the litigation coming in the front door is out the back door in terms of charters. $1 billion a year of tax money goes into charters, and Michael will tell you about econ, I'm sure, and how money's wasted there in some of the online schools. And to the credit of the General Assembly, for a while, during the time that this was in court, and about 4, 5, or 6 years after it was in court, the state did in fact make some gains. They did, in fact, try to connect the dots between the funding level and the actual cost of educating kids. But the problem is, it didn't go far enough. Now, during the time of the Great Recession in the state, there was a governor by the name of Strickland who developed implemented the evidence-based model for school funding, and what that did was it identified, what are the components of a quality education, and then let's build a funding system that funds those components. But that was during the Great Recession. We didn't have any money. The state had less money during his gubernatorial program than the previous governor, and so that would have taken a 10-year phase in, and when the new administration came in, they just scuttled that and had no formula. And so what's the bottom line of all this? The bottom line is the constitutional provision is solid gold. The legislature has largely ignored the responsibility for a fair and efficient system, and even after the litigation, except for the facilities, the state legislature and the governor's office have not fulfilled their constitutional responsibility. And then to compound the problem, they've set up an alternative system. An alternative system where we have, and let me just digress here for a moment. Back in the early 1900s, we had about 3,500 school districts, and for 75 years, the legislature and the state officials worked to reduce the number of school districts down to 617, and then it's gotten down to 612. For 75 years, we were reducing school districts. But during the 90s and the early 2000s here, we've created 400 new entities in the form of charters. Now, how smart is that? It takes 75 years or 100 years to reduce the number of entities, to get it down to 600, and then create 600 new, 200 of which have shut down. Some of them shut down, took state money, shut down before they educated one kid. And Mike will talk more about that. So what do we do? I mean, I've been in hundreds of school districts across the state over the years, and folks wring their hands, should we pass the levy or fail it, and then put the pressure on the state? No, the answer is pass the levy and then go to work the state representative, the governor's office, to get the state system fixed. Because Woodridge is one school district among 617, and by the way, you're kind of a small school district compared to a lot of them. And so, as far as the state's concerned, it's just a spot on the map. And if you fail to levy, to put the pressure on the state, I would say, who cares? Just one little spot on the map. So, the good people of this community really need to pass the issue and then follow Superintendent Davis's lead in putting the pressure on the state. That's what I want to say. Just, we can't afford to deny our kids because some, may I use the word, uninformed, ignorant state officials aren't meeting their constitutional responsibility. I can say that differently, but I think you get what I'm saying. Okay? Thank you.
Wouldn't you love to just sit with a cold drink and talk with him about what he's learned? Did I say a cold drink? I meant a hot drink, a cup of coffee or tea or something like that. Thank you, Bill. The work that you continue to do is, I know, frustrating, but it's making a difference, and there's a lot of momentum I think I'm seeing starting to grow among my colleagues statewide that are just done with it, you know. And I think you're right. We need to get together and advocate for change, and I have just a big mouth to help our community do that. Let's get into the weeds a little bit next. Okay, let's have our illustrious treasurer come up and share some statistics with you. Now, I recognize that there are people here from other districts, and that's wonderful. I'm glad you're here. We're going to give you some Woodridge examples, but you may see your district's name in here too, okay? Know that Tom has reached out to other treasurers, and where we use other districts as examples, those treasurers are aware of that, and they're working together. Our districts are working together, and we should be, to advocate for change. So Tom's going to walk you through what I think are some shocking statistics.
Okay. Can everyone hear me if I walk around a little bit versus the microphone? No. You need me on the microphone? Okay. I'll stand turn around. What I'm going to talk to you about tonight is some of the funding with Woodridge and how it's flawed by the state. Okay? I'm going to give you some hard, concrete numbers of how Woodridge is funded, and I'm going to go look at last fiscal year specifically, the fiscal year 2017. But before I get into the numbers, I want to lay some ground rules on what we're talking about. The following information, like I said, covers fiscal year 2017, and all this data comes straight from your Ohio Department of Education. The foundation statements that the basic aid funding comes to the district, it's right on their database. What the funding that we're talking about is not only our basic aid. Most people always talk about the $6,000 everyone gets, but there's additional funding that comes to school districts, such as transportation, gifted funding, special education, economically disadvantaged funding that we also get. Okay? What we are not going to be talking about is data from open enrollment, community school, other adjustments of our foundation statement that is Woodridge. Okay? We're talking specifically right now about the funding that comes through Woodridge. Okay? So what I want to point out is the fact that last year, in fiscal year 17, Woodridge received $1.45 million for our kids. Okay? That is, they funded us for 1,944, so let's just say roughly almost 2,000 kids. That comes out to $743.26 per child. Okay? And you can say, all right, $743, that's pretty nice to get. What I wanted to do was, and for those of you who don't know, I've only been at Woodridge here working for about 6 months. My previous district was Sebring Local Schools in Mahoning County. I wanted to look at the comparison between Woodridge and Sebring. Sebring received $5 million, over $5 million, for 589 kids. That's about a third of what Woodridge is. And you can see, hopefully, you can see that they received almost $9,500 per child, where Woodridge was $743. Now that is pretty drastic. And Sebring's in Mahoning County, so we can say, all right, as Mahoning or Summit, let's look a little closer. Another district I look up, again, is not Summit County, but because of our league-wide affiliation in previous years, Wyndham Schools is a school that we used to play, okay? So I looked at Wyndham. Wyndham, at 601 kids, they were funded at over $9,600 per child last year. Again, Woodridge was $743. Okay, I put these out there as a wow factor because it's pretty significant between over $9,000 and $743. But I want to be realistic, guys. I said, so let's look at Summit County. What is the rest of Summit County getting compared to Woodridge? So what I did is I pulled every school district funding formula, or their foundation, off OD's website, okay? And you can look at the amount of money they get versus when you look at the children funded, the number of kids they have funded, their ADM, and how much they get. You can see county-wide average is $3,400. What was Woodridge again? $743. $743. It's pretty significant. And you can say, all right, maybe that's not a lot of money, but isn't it? Because when you look again, you look at the $3,400 countywide average is given. We get $740 there, it's a $2,600 difference. So we'd like to think, what if Woodridge got that additional $2,600? What would that mean to Woodridge? $5 million per year. We would get additional from the state. If that were the case, we would not be here this evening. There would not be a levy on the ballot. It's just not fair what other districts get versus Woodridge. But the proof in these numbers, again, they come straight from ODE. They're right off their webpage. So, with the money we do get, the $1.4 million, okay, what is expected? Well, with that $1.4 million, that funds your students kindergarten through 12th grade. So that's 13 different grades, okay? What that equates to is we get a little over $111,000 per grade level. So we get $111,000 for kindergarten, we get $111,000 for 5th grade, we get $111,000 for 10th grade, if you want to look at it that way. Okay? So what are we supposed to provide them as a school district on that $111,000? So per grade level, we are supposed to supply teachers, your classroom assistants or your paraprofessionals, counselors, therapists, custodians, bus drivers, coaches, clerical staff, and principals, all on $111,000 per grade level. That's all these employees on $111,000. We have to employ them. We haven't bought them a supply. We haven't opened the door and turned on the lights. We haven't turned on the furnace. We haven't done anything. We're supposed to do that on $111,000. Not too easy to do. This is why, unfortunately, a district like Woodridge has to come back to the voters. The last thing our Board of Education wanted to do was put a levy on the ballot. But at $111,000 per grade level, there's no other option. A couple of last things I want to talk to you about is the type of funding school districts have. There's three basic funding type of school districts. Everyone starts out on a formula. As Dr. Phillis talked about, when the DeRolph decision came down, they started tinkering how schools are funded and they come up with a formula. So every couple of years when the new budget comes out, there's a new formula set out there that funds schools. Every school district in the state of Ohio starts out as a formula district, okay? But what happens is sometimes that formula will bring you lower money or less money than you did previously. So what the state came up with was called the guarantee district. For districts on a guarantee, what the state says is you will not get funding anything less than you did in year X. If the formula comes out that you're getting less funded than year X, we will give you an additional amount. We'll guarantee you get that additional amount. And that's what's called a guaranteed district. There's a number of them throughout the state of Ohio and in Summit County as well. There's one other category that Woodridge falls into, and that's called a capped district. What that basically does is the state looks at our valuation per child that we have, and therefore they cap us at what we will receive from the state. They basically tell you that you've got a high property valuation, therefore you can levy more taxes, so go do it. That's what they're telling us by making us a capped district. Last year, in fiscal year 2017, if we would have been a formula district, okay, and operated just like most of our schools in the state of Ohio, we would have received over $3.6 million. However, because we are a capped district, what we received was the 1.4. Now, I know this is a lot of stuff, and I know when I talk, I ramble through things quickly. At the end of the evening, all this information, it'll be available to you. We have handouts we can give to you on this information. If you'd like to take it back with you, just look at it, or share it with your friends, or what have you. We will post it up on our website as well. So if you want any of this, please, take it with you. I just wanted to, it's a shock, yes it is, but I just want to make sure everyone realizes how Woodridge gets funded versus other like schools, just like us in Summit County. Thank you for your time this evening.
Just to add a few things, our general fund budget is about $30 million. We get $1.4 million from the state. Therefore, we rely on local property taxes to make up that difference. The cost to educate a child in Woodridge is it's between $10,000 and $11,000 a child. So that the actual cost is between $10,000 and $11,000 per child. I introduced Bill Phillis to you a little bit ago, now I want to introduce Mike Collins. Mike has become a close friend of mine the last few years because he and I have been working behind the scenes on all this charter school reform advocacy. Mike is in the marketing field by trade and has run a number of very successful companies over the years. And as a resident of Westerville, Ohio, Mike, with his passion for public education, ran for and was elected to the Westerville City School District Board of Education on a number of occasions and served his community as a school board member for quite some time. He and his family still live in Westerville, and it was during his time there that he realized that he could make an impact on a broader scale and decided to run for one of the elected seats on the State Board of Education and was elected several times, I believe, twice, to the State Board of Education. He is no longer on the State Board, and I'm kind of glad he's not, because now he can really help me be a big mouth around the state and really advocate for change without fear of stepping on something he shouldn't as a state school board member. Mike and I, as I said, have been working on this charter school advocacy effort. We have an organization called Real Choice Ohio, and we're reaching out to school districts across the state with information, and I won't steal all your thunder, but information to help them retain and lure back students out of the charter schools that they go to. So Mike is here to add, I think, a call to action to all of you, and to kind of set the stage for our Q&A, which will come after him. Mike Collins.
This is the first thing I do every time there's a microphone. I'll put it down. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you. I want to take a minute and say that President Jeff McHugh, Vice President Tammy Heffernan, Jan Flasco, Marilyn Hanson, and Dave Liddick, thank you for your work. It's probably one of the most challenging and thankless jobs you can do. I had a dear friend of mine who served on City Council in Westerville, and thank goodness for at least 7 years we got to serve together. He was on for 20 on City Council. And I remember when I decided to run, and he said, "Collins, what is wrong with you? It's the hardest job in the world. You're messing with two things the public cares most about: their children and their taxes. You can't win." He was right. The one thing my wife did say when I left Westerville School Board and went to the state and now not at all is that my trips to the grocery store are much quicker because you don't get stopped. In all seriousness, it's a pleasure to be here. I've had a chance to review your materials pretty thoroughly, although Bill wasn't necessarily exaggerating very much when he said, "You got a cheerleader over here named Walter Davis, and he talks about all of you all the time and where he's from, and he's very proud of it." And Tom, welcome to the board, welcome to a great place, and thanks for making it better. I'm only going to touch a little bit on the charter stuff, and because I really want to talk to you about your election, but I will urge you to do two things, and write these down if you would, if you got that. Number one, there's a website called Know Your Charter. I can't give you that much information that clearly if you let me stand here and filibuster for 48 hours. There's a former state legislator who was head of the House Education Financial Committee named Steve Dyer. This is all his work and his research. It is the most thorough and yet the most understandable information about the impact of dollars on public schools and charters, and more importantly, how they have failed us. And I will just touch very quickly. The lowest 10% of performing schools in the state of Ohio are all charters. There are only 12% of the charters in the state of Ohio that get a C+ or better. They have started with a $10 million experiment in 1997. At
and they are now breaking $1 billion a year out of the budget. Where does that come from? It doesn't come from a set-aside out of the budget. That comes directly from the districts from which these children leave. Now, I am not an anti-choice person. I am anti-choice that doesn't work, and I am very anti-choice for those things that don't have transparency and that don't have accountability for the academic success of our young people and for the way they treat your public dollars. That's unacceptable, unconscionable, and illegal. But this concept of privatizing public education, which is really what has been this draw factor for states and elected officials, has actually at least proven that as Bill has so appropriately defined, the public common school can do a better job than any private environment you can ever imagine or fashion. Yes, you'll get exceptions, don't misunderstand me. But the vast majority of our successes belong to our public schools, families like you, and our public children. I just want to point out one more that deals with Woodridge, and then I'm going to ask you to know your charter, and starting, hopefully, give us one more week to be safe, but by a week from Friday, Wally's Real Choices Board of Directors chair, they will see the semifinal, so and Bill sits on it, the semifinal version is Friday on the brand new website, but within, let's say, a week from Friday, that website will be public. There's some pretty darn good information on that as well. It's called realchoiceohio.org. And that website will continue to mature and grow. The primary purpose of Real Choice Ohio is to build a communications platform and a resource bank of communications tools and techniques for school districts on how to best speak to their parents and engage their communities about why public schools are the real choice and the best choice. And I'm going to lobby like crazy to get on the sleeve of every one of those t-shirts with that little Real Choice logo before this is all over. But in all seriousness, this is serious business. I am absolutely thrilled and honored to be a part of it. And it's one of the great fun things I'm having since I left the State Board of Education. And leadership like this allows people like me to try to do good work. The last piece I want to point out about you all is you're getting $111,000 per grade from the state. That's what that average is. I think I remember correctly. This past school year, not the one current, previous one, $357,000 walked out of Woodridge's budget to charter schools. You could fund 3 entire classes that the state took away from you for children that went to charter schools from your district. 3 classes, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, for the amount of money that just walked out of your budget, through no fault of your own. So, let's understand that we're not going to fix that right away. We're going to help you fix it, and we're going to make noise about it. The first thing we're going to do is vote on that first Tuesday in November. The second thing we're going to do is vote for the Woodridge levy, which is issue 55, I think I saw. No, what is it? 35, I'm sorry. 35, which I saw on your great big signs driving in, which were fabulous. And I want to talk to you a little bit about why. Basically, when I came to Woodridge and I read your materials and I got to know Wally better, what I really figured out, and I come from a district not too dissimilar, just much larger, but the same composition, the same kind of families. What you're really doing is taking what's very good. You're being asked to keep it very good, and you're being asked to make it better. That's what this is all about. Yes, it's going to get in your pocket. But the fact of the matter is, it's not an unthinkable or unconscionable amount of money or a gigantic hand in your pocket. It is a sacrifice. But it keeps Woodridge and it keeps your community and the value of your houses what they are. Let's talk about some facts. You have a 92% graduation rate. You have 16 years in a row with the State Auditors Award. No pressure, Tom. It just needs to keep going. You actually provide special attention students, as I call them, instead of special education students, special attention students. You get about 12% of your student body, and you serve them extremely well. You have a very high gifted percentage. You have about 18% of your student body is identified as gifted. You have numerous AP and honors classes, and what they call the AP honor roll, which tracks all the schools that have APs in the United States and Canada. You're ranked 547 out of thousands on that honor roll. You have very significant winning athletic teams and excellent overall athletic programs. You have numerous award-winning theater, music, and arts programs in this community. And you have every middle school and every high school student in this district has a Chromebook. This is 2017. This is your district. Put your hands together and congratulate yourself. You're doing a heck of a job. Unfortunately, there's also some things called realities. From the last biennium budget to this biennium budget, you're going to lose 26% of your state funding. Now, I know that's 26% of a little half shell, but it's now, only a third shell. That's a challenge. Only 9 districts have a lower level of state funding than you do out of 613. Which is part of what I want to touch on for just a second, and that is, it's called the wealth factor. So you say, well, how come all these other districts get more money? Well, because your property values are at least valued as high as they are, regardless of the percentage of students that might be on free and reduced lunch, or some areas of this community have their struggles and they have underserved populations. If that number overall is big enough compared to the per capita, that's called the wealth factor. The wealth factor is a perceived factor of wealth by the state of Ohio on which they base school funding. It is not a real factor of wealth on what they base school funding. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a statement of fact. And so once you throw in this wealth factor, which where I come from has a similar one, we're just not quite hit nearly as hard as you, but we get hit pretty hard. It's one of those things that they wove into justifying this proposition of how schools are funded right now. Because they also had to figure out how to get more money for Appalachia and so forth, as opposed to saying, we just need to put more money in education. And Tom, in all due respects, because you all have been taught to call them formulas, this is strictly a funding mechanism. There is no formula to school funding in the state of Ohio. If there was a formula, it would be a guarantee that X% of every state budget goes to education, not what they decide on what percentage they're going to give this biennium to education that will change in the next biennium that they give to education. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a formula. House Bill 1 in 2009 was the closest thing we ever had to a formula, or the closest thing that began to address DeRolph we have seen since DeRolph. So, again, back to where we were. Only 9 districts have lower state funding. On one side, congratulations. On the other side, I'm sorry. Keep in mind, you have been a very generous community. In 12, you gave license to the continual success of Woodridge by passing an operating levy. And at 15, you passed a bond issue. Well, the challenge you have is the other thing in Ohio, that you can't take bond money, which goes to capital, which is buildings and textbooks and buses. You can't use those for instruction. So the challenge is you continue to be a good community in 15 and provide dollars for the bond issue for your physical plants. And if there was money left over, you can't use it for teachers. It's a law. It's not a Woodridge law. It's a state law. The good news is that as those dollars go up when you pass this operating levy, $100 per 100,000 house at the end of 2018 come off, because the bond will be retired, which will reduce your tax obligation by $100 per 100,000 value of your house, but it doesn't start till January of 19. So for 1 year, one doesn't go away while you had one, and after that, 1/3 of what it's going to cost against a $100,000 valued house goes away. So hang on tight. Christmas is coming. It's going to get better. Okay? What you're being asked to support is an 8.71 emergency levy. Remember, that's a category called realities. And that's going to cost $304 per $100,000 value house, which starting in 2019 will be $204, not $304. So those are what stand before you. This can't work and can't happen if not everybody in this room leaves here with a sign and a commitment. We went through I've been through overall in Westerville since I've lived there. I have participated personally in 9 of them. I was the chair, over 15 issues. That's over a long period of time. And I can tell you, we developed a phrase that has led to success over a decent period of time. And it's called mine plus 9. Mine is my vote. 9 is the 9 more you're going to get to come to the polls and vote yes. That's all you need to do today. Leave here tonight with this phrase, mine plus 9. You and 9 more. You'll be fine. It'll all work. But in all seriousness, this only works if the citizens make it work. In all due respects to the great leadership of the board, they can't pass this issue. And they certainly can't pass it by themselves. Wally, you and Tom, and I forgot your name, and knew it, had it back there in first. Kristen, they can't do it by themselves. Your teachers can't do it by themselves. You together with them can make this work. It's your turn. Yes, I know it's your turn once again, but it's still your turn. We all get it, and we all will do it. I'd like to close with 2 phrases. When I was growing up, my father had a lot of quotes and phrases, and I found out later there were some of them I thought were his at 9, and then I read them in Mark Twain and everywhere else. He never admitted that he took them from anybody else, so for a long time I thought they were dad's. But one of them was, he told me about a fellow named Voltaire. And Voltaire basically had his own ticker tape parade a while before he died. They paraded him through the streets, whatever they did back then. And when it was his turn to talk, he said, it's not that what I have done is so great, or my accomplishment is so significant, but it's the shoulders upon which I stand. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a chance to be the soldier, the shoulders for the children in Woodridge community. And I have every belief that you're going to give them good shoulders to stand on. And the last one is, it's a phrase written by George Bernard Shaw, made very famous by a political icon of a long time ago. And it goes, some people see things as they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not. What you do on that first Tuesday in November will give 2,000 young people a chance to ask why not.
Follow him. Pretty much anywhere. Well, I think we need to hear from our board president, Jeff McHugh, to kind of get us ready for some Q&A. I hope you have some questions on your mind that we can answer, whether they're global questions about school funding. We got an expert here, Dr. Phillis. If there's specific Woodridge questions, Tom and I will be happy to answer it. So, Jeff McHugh, on behalf of the board, you want to come up and give your 2 cents to this conversation? Jeff is our board president.
Thanks, Wally. I thought you threw me off there when you said after the mic we were going to go to Q&A. I think. Okay, well, I guess I'm here pre-Q&A. So there you have it. The state of corruption, I said corruption. Dysfunction we are in. Thank you for the overview, Dr. Phillis and Mr. Collins. There is no level playing field here in Ohio, as you've heard. The state of our finances and how we got here, you have heard from Mr. Morehouse. Thank you, Tom. You also heard a little bit from Scott Carlo about how we plan to pursue this campaign and also his views on that. But really, we're in a tough spot, as we have a district that provides an excellent education with rigor, relevance, and opportunity, but yet is being starved and cut daily on funding. So we have to play the cards we are dealt in the game we are in by coming back to you, the voters, in the district. We respectfully ask for your support to keep us headed in the right direction and on track. But, and this is the part of the Board of Education job I dislike the most when we vote to put a levy on the ballot. I know nobody wants to pay more taxes. I know I don't want to pay more taxes. And I know my colleagues on the board don't want to pay more taxes. And yet, given our choices and our situation, I would ask you to vote to do so. But I also will tell you this, we have other tools that you've heard a little bit about to begin using for the long-run picture to change the system. The people in Columbus need to hear from you in letters to them and possibly votes against them. In my opinion. Okay, I will leave you this. I heard a quote once. There's a senator from in D.C., Everett Dirksen. It was a while ago. In fact, there's a building named after him now. But he always said, when I feel the heat is when I see the light. And the letters and the votes and the phone calls are our heat to make them see the light. So there's our state of affairs that we're in. I thank you for coming, for listening, and for your consideration on Election Day. So, on to the questions. Thank you.
You guys that spoke tonight, you want to come up and we'll just field questions as a group here and go as they come. I'm hoping some people have some questions. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you have questions that you'd rather ask privately, there are 3x5 cards on your table. If you leave your email address or your phone number, we'll get back to you with answers. Who has a question? Mr. Blunt.
Wally, in the presentation, you mentioned that one of the things that happens to the district is we get capped. Is there any appeal to that? Is there anything that we can do as a district to appeal that? Because, obviously that's based on information that they have, but there's a lot that goes into that real estate information. So could we appeal that? Yeah.
We could try, but it's just, unfortunately, I hate to say it's the way it is. Really, sending an appeal to Columbus, there's no appeal process for that. There's, as I talked, the formula district, even though it is not fully funded in a formula, and then there's the guarantee districts, and then the districts like Woodridge are capped, that just, because of our property valuation, the state will not give us any more money than we're allowed to get. And I wish we could appeal that process, but as of right now, until things change overall in Columbus, there's no appeal to that process.
Yeah. Really, Jeff, the only way to change it is legislatively. Because when the governor's budget is proposed, each biennium, the legislature tears it apart. Sometimes it looks like the governor's recommendation, sometimes it doesn't. In our case, this current biennium, this past summer, the reports we got showed a 26% reduction, in large part because of the phase out of the tangible personal property tax, which we knew was coming, but we didn't expect it to come all at once. Years ago, Woodridge was not on the ballot quite as often before I was here, back in that era, because there was full payment of these tangible personal property taxes, the cap taxes and things like that, which generated revenue from equipment, cars that sit out on the car lots out here. The district received revenue from those corporate taxes. Those have all been dried up. So as a result, our revenue stream has changed dramatically over the years. Our former treasurer used to tell me stories about how back in those days, things were so different with our funding stream, despite the fact that our property wealth was so high. So I guess the short answer, Jeff, is that there isn't an appeals mechanism. As a matter of fact, when Tom and I called Columbus, if they answer the phone, the answers we get are, well, we'll have to check into that and get back to you, and very rarely do you hear back from them. It's a sad state of affairs. It wasn't that way in the past. At the beginning of my career, you could call ODE and they would send people out to your district to work with you. That is not the case anymore.
Well, we wanted to follow up to that.
Yeah.
When the charter schools and school of choice started, the biggest argument that they put out there was that they wanted to be, schools run more like a business. And as a result of that, they said they wanted it to be competitive, and that was a big thing that they promoted at the time. Competition isn't subsidy. Competition is you go out and you earn it. Is there any effort in what all of you are doing on the state level now to maybe go back and look at the beginnings of how this all came about and turn it around on them? Because if only 12% are succeeding, no business I know of would allow that to continue at any point in time.
These guys are biting at the, they want to come and talk.
The charter school business in Ohio started with a $10 million experiment. An experiment or a pilot program, and they were supposed to be, checking to see if it worked. But before the ink was dried on that legislation, they increased it to a $50 million program, and then it was increased the third year to a $100 million program. Now it's a $1 billion program. The idea was that the charter schools would, they would inform the public schools on how to do a better job. Okay, they would be incubators of innovation, creativity, and find ways to better educate kids. But the bottom line is, on the average, charter schools do less well academically than traditional public schools. And besides that, they don't have the variety of activities. I mean, they don't have, the gym full here at night, a gym full of people, the students interacting and playing and being, being improved, their lives being improved by that association. One of the charter schools, the electronic classroom tomorrow, has a 40% graduation rate. Now, just kind of keep these numbers in mind. A 40% graduation rate, and then of those graduates, they have a 2.7% matriculation into college. Now, if Woodridge had a 40% graduation rate, and then of those that graduated only had 2.7% going into college, you'd run the Board of Education and the superintendent out of town on a rail. But that electronic classroom tomorrow, because the owner-operator of that outfit feeds the politicians money after money after money after money. And the politicians just ignore it's just a crime the way the charter school industry works in Ohio. And there's some mighty big players that are perpetuating this. The electronic classroom of tomorrow is in court right now, asking the Supreme Court to approve, or otherwise to stop the State Department of Education audit. The State Department of Education audited their 2015-16 school year and found that 60% of the kids weren't participating. 60%. So the State Department said, you owe $60 million because they were getting over $100 million. Okay, $60 million you got to pay back the state. They are in court right now, this is before the Supreme Court of Ohio, asking that audit be voided. They're not saying they educated the kids. They're not arguing that, yeah, we educated those saying that we want that audit voided because we don't have any responsibility to educate those kids. We don't have any responsibility to document that they even participate in the program. Now, if you were a state legislator, I mean, wouldn't you say, hey, we got to stop this kind of chicanery? But no, because that person is given millions of dollars in campaign contributions, they just let it slide.
Just you asked the question about is anything being done about it, and I kind of like to respond. There's a quick footnote. The developer of Econ, Classroom Tomorrow, and particularly the software on the business side, which is where he makes his money, is the 5th largest contributor to the state Republican Party each year for the last 5 years. Let's move on. There's 2 things that have happened pretty recently about stopping the charter movement. One is something called House Bill 2, which puts some real parameters and some more accountability things in place. Not enough, but it was all they could get through at the time. But it's definitely a step in the right direction in terms of the accountability system, both financially and academically. So it's a step. We need about 3 more of these. And I can tell you the people that led the charge, and Senator Peggy Lehner, the head of the Senate Education Committee, is coming back with more. It's just going to take a little time. And your communications and your votes will help speed that up. And the second thing, and one of the biggest things, is the way charters operate. You have to have a sponsor. They're the ones that sponsor the effort. They collect the money from the state. They give it to the operator of the school who runs the school. Those requirements now and evaluation of the sponsors is much more stringent. But we're only beginning our 2nd year of that whole change. And we've already reduced the number of sponsors in Ohio by half, but it's going to take about 3 to 4 more years to trickle down all the way to continue to reduce the number of students. Once you can't sponsor anymore, once your sponsors go away, the things that have become available in terms of operating charters shrink. Now, charters for the first time these past 3 years, their attendance has gone down slightly each year. So overall, it's been about an 8 to 9% decrease over the last 3 years. We needed to move into the 5 and 7% range for about 3 years in a row, and there really won't be enough money to go around. That's the way you get to it. But you're going to have to do it through evaluation, and you're going to have to do it through actually reducing sponsor opportunity and making it much harder to be a sponsor and holding them much more accountable. I think you're in Ohio, you're not going to automatically wipe them out. You have to move the law, and it's all movable. It's law, it's not in the Constitution. But you're going to have to move it so it becomes more challenging, and the evaluations of them become more stringent.
The other thing I would add to that is House Bill 2 that Mike mentioned was co-sponsored, if not spearheaded, by Christina Rubner, who is our House representative locally. Believe me, I'm on the phone with her often, telling her that she needs to go the next 3 steps to try to get that sponsorship issue resolved. Other questions? Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed to turn out today, but I get it. I haven't been with internet, so I'm so long I've achieved my clothes on here. There's a lot of information that you presented tonight. How are we going to get this out to the public? Outside of people sitting in this room, we can't do all of that.
Exactly.
I have a thought, but I want to go work. You have students in this school, and the middle school and high schoolers have Chromebooks. If you put it on the website and you make it available and give it as an assignment for the students to take home with their parents, or to share with their parents, that would be one way to get it out to their parents in schools.
We certainly will consider that. As you notice, Eric is taping us tonight. That's purposeful, and it is our intent to put that out on the web and Facebook and whatnot. So we'll discuss whether or not to use the lesson idea to move that forward. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Question?
I need some more specifics on the actual levy. So
Okay.
like, how long is the tax burden really going to be?
Okay, this is a 5-year emergency operating levy. It is at 8.71 mils. I don't have that paper in front of me. Much of the details are on the document that's in front of you. It is, by nature, an operating levy cannot be used for physical facilities. Tom made a point to me this afternoon in the office, and it's true. He said, even if we didn't have the construction project going on, we'd still be on the ballot right now. Because our operating balance is such that we have a deficit. And we knew that years ago when we passed the last issue. We told the voters that we wouldn't be back for new money for 5 to 7 years, and here we are 5 to 7 years later. Obviously in Ohio, operating levies can be renewed, so I don't know what the board will decide, but it is a 5-year issue. Could be renewed at the end of 5 years.
It would become effective in 2018?
Yes, it would become effective January 2018. The actual cost for a $100,000 home is $304.86. As Mike mentioned, we have a bond issue that was passed back in 1994 to build the middle school. That will be coming off the ballot after 2018. That is approximately $101 or so that will be coming off the ballot. So as I said, for 1 year it's going to be $300, but after that it'll be dropping to $200. It is a 5-year emergency levy. And what emergency levy means, that is a fixed dollar amount levy. It's a $4 million levy. We will never get any more or any less. So if new construction comes in, if more houses go up, we still won't get the $400. What that does to the homeowner is it spreads it out more. So we're not getting any more. So that $304.85 would be dropping as new construction goes up. That's what happens with a fixed dollar levy. There's no growth for the school district. And this is one of the reasons the board did this, so that, as new construction homes go up in the district, it spreads it out evenly more. If constituents are paying more, they're actually paying less, and the school district will still get the $4 million.
I have a levy, question or suggestion. All right, so it's a non-presidential election year. What do you, and I always see this on the county election results, but how many typically votes are you expecting to vote, yay or nay, typically for this November, like years past? And then I have a question once you give me that answer.
I can't give you an exact number, but I can tell you that in our school district, we've analyzed elections over time, and we always do better in November. Whether it's a presidential or not, we always do better in November. We always do much better during presidential elections.
So,
more people come out.
All right, so my question then, or suggestion, because we look at like ways to get votes out, or get people to support public versus charter.
Right.
And I'm one, I just thought of this too, but it's kind of too late. I have 2 children that graduated from Woodridge recently. On top of a class that last year was about 180, I think, that graduated, times 4 years or so that are still going to college, a lot of them, that will not vote because I didn't remind them to do an absentee to do a vote. So I'm thinking that's, sometimes we're off by a couple hundred votes.
Makes a difference.
So I don't know if that's something that we can look at to just have the parents remember that your kids need to,
Let me tell you a couple things we have going on that kind of addresses that. There is a parent in the district who's starting tomorrow, which I think early voting starts tomorrow, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think it does. Starting whenever that date is, she will download the names and addresses of the people who request absentee ballots from the Board of Elections website. And we will target mail them specifically levy literature requesting their yes vote. So we're monitoring the Board of Elections early voter database. We've done that a lot. And that has worked very well because the timing of it is such that our piece hits them at about the same time the ballot hits their mailbox. The other thing we do, and this is thanks to our government teacher, Kevin Hardy, we make sure that all of our seniors who are of age are registered to vote. and we encourage them to. I think it's a little more than an encouragement, but those of you who know Kevin know what I'm talking about. He's a powerful advocate for the democratic process, and he works with our older students to make sure they're registered. The Alumni Association has talked a couple of times about doing something that you're referring to, Mike, about specifically targeting our new college students. Whether or not they're prepared to do that this November or this month, I'm not positive, but you're absolutely right. That's a pool of votes that we would assume would be positive. Others? Yeah.
Just a two-part question. The first one is, just using the figures that you gave us today, we have a $30 million operating budget, and $357,000 of that goes to the charter schools.
Yeah.
If we got rid of the charter schools today, you get that $357,000 back. With that $1 billion sitting out there for the whole state, would we even see more coming back if we got rid of the charter schools?
Let me try to phrase it so I can understand. If you got back the $357,000,
Right.
or you didn't have to keep, it's not going to get it back, you didn't have to pass it out.
Right.
So you kept it.
Right. But then there's that whole $1 billion that's going to all the charter.
But the $357,000 comes out of your budget.
Right.
If those kids don't go to charter school, it stays in your budget.
Right.
So you really don't care what the rest of the state's doing.
Okay.
In that respect.
Right, but what I'm saying is there's $1 billion out there.
But if it all starts to shrink, that billion's going to shrink.
Okay, so then it would just...
Your 357, if it all came back and didn't go out, would shrink that billion by $357,000.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
What I'm trying to figure out is, why are people making those choices to begin with? Why are they choosing to go somewhere else? I don't think anybody on our board, and I know I don't have any problem with choice. I think parents should make choices for their kids, what's best for them. What I've been telling our folks is we need to be the choice. We need to be the place that they prefer for their children. When parents choose a charter school, the state of Ohio just deducts from our allocation the money that goes to that charter school and sends it to them instead of us. So if we can stem the flow and stop that migration of kids to those charter schools, that money will never leave us, it'll just stay here. So the total amount per state has grown because more and more kids have taken advantage of that choice. Why do kids choose to go to a charter school? There's a lot of reasons. When I talk to those parents in the summer, I ask them, why did you guys make that choice? A lot of times, and this may sound bad, but a lot of times the answer I get is, well, we were offered a free computer and internet service. Every student in the Woodridge School District, grades 6 through 12, gets a computer. Now, I don't provide internet service for them, but maybe we should. I don't know, maybe we should. Maybe if that's a way to get the $6,000 to come back or not to be deducted from us, it'd be a small price to pay to keep those kids here. Maybe, something to think about. So I guess my answer is that billion will reduce as public schools do a better job of keeping their kids in the house. It's a simplified answer.
I think it's a strong system, the charter schools. I'm just thinking, if you get rid of them, can we get a little bit more back from the state?
We probably would. I would hope we would. They would have more money to allocate, in the end. So Shannon.
I spoke about, we all spoke about what the things Woodridge has to offer, the academics, the arts, the sports. That can be very intimidating for some kids.
That's true.
Not all high school students are cut out for the traditional high school experience. I mean, have any studies been done as to what, I know you said postpartum and talk to whose kids have chosen to go to schools. Is there a certain type of child that goes? I mean, I don't think you would find high-performing athletes or academic students going to schools.
Please, April, don't write this down. April is my friend from the Colorado Falls News Press. Because what I'm about to say is me talking. This is not scientific at all. But the little bit of research I've done indicates that those who make those choices in general tend to be lower achieving students in general. That's not to say that there aren't exceptions to that. Of course there are. In our district here at Woodridge, I can tell you that, and I've studied this, as you can imagine, a lot. We have quite a few who have chosen to go to charter schools for whom English is not their primary language. So these are kids who have come to us from a foreign country who perhaps don't feel quite as connected to our culture. And because of that, maybe they don't feel quite as comfortable in our school. So they've chosen to stay home and take their classes online in their language. We certainly provide those services in-house, but for some of them, maybe it's just a little easier to adapt. You see what I mean? And we have quite a few students that choose econ, for example, for whom English is not their primary language. And when I talk to them, or attempt to talk to them, what I get is, it's just easier for us to get that instruction in our native tongue and to do it on the computer. So how do we reach that population? How do I win them back to Woodridge? We make opportunities for them. We provide intervention for them in their native language, and that's hard to do. Where do you find people who speak the language of Uzbekistan, Nepal? My friends from Cuyahoga Falls have the same issue with so many refugee placements in our two communities. It's a real challenge for us as public schools. But it's a challenge we can't shy away from. We have to figure out ways to accommodate those students. So I'm not suggesting that all of our students are in that category, but there's a good number of our charter school resident students who are not native English speakers. That's an issue. Mr. Shaw.
I'm interested to know how, let's say the year is 2020, and you have your Chromebooks, and the question then becomes, how will you or won't you use textbooks?
Well, Lou, we're actually seeing decreased use of textbooks already as we've implemented our Chromebooks in the district. As you well know, there are all sorts of ways that we can deliver instruction. We can still use textbooks where they're appropriate, but fewer and fewer companies are relying on that traditional modality, and they're going in different directions. More integrated technological resources, hyperlinks that kids can click on and go right to the source of the information. All sorts of dynamic curricula that really take kids right where the action is, where they can experience the curriculum live, be it online, right in front of them on the screen. So I would say that it's already started. Certainly by 2020, I would expect that we would see fewer textbooks, if any, in our schools. While we're not exclusively offering online courses, I'm sure there will be some. We do have some available. We've been teaching Mandarin Chinese on the computer for a number of years, as well as a couple of other courses that are available. So the evolution is ongoing, but it has already begun. Go ahead.
What would be, how do you, for example, teach math? Do you use an online website like Khan Academy or math?
I was in a classroom last week and the Khan website was written on the chalkboard, or the dry erase board. Not chalkboard, I'm sorry, dry erase board. That's where technology has gone, right? From the bowling alley to the classroom, overhead projectors and whatnot. But yeah, the challenge for teaching and learning today is figuring out what the student needs and providing it to them. If that's the Khan Academy that does it the best, then so be it. Whatever we can do to provide the best targeted resource for kids, whether it's a textbook, a box of dirt, whatever it is, to teach the concept. As a former science teacher, I can tell you that I don't have much use for textbooks to teach in physical science. Let's go out and get dirty and learn how the world works. That's what science is about. So that's what instruction ought to look like. What do our students need? How do they learn best? What are they interested in? And how do we provide that for them? Who else? Yes, sir.
One question regarding funding. Is the $745, is that federal funding, state, local, all of it?
Thank you. That is solely the allocation we get from Columbus. We do receive a limited amount of federal dollars, but those are targeted dollars that are specific to a program. For example, we get federal Title I dollars, which are targeted to reading and a little bit of math intervention at the elementary school. We get federal Title IIA funds, which are targeted for professional development for our staff. We get Title III monies, very small amount, which are targeted for limited English proficient students. Those very kids I was talking about earlier that come to us from foreign countries. We get a little bit of Title IV money, I believe, still. No, four has dried up, he tells me. Title VI is special education funding. Those are federal dollars. They total probably $1 billion, maybe a little more than $1 billion, right around that. But they come with massive strings attached. They have to be spent on those initiatives alone. And if you don't spend them, they go back. But the $730 amount is strictly state money. Remember I said it costs between $10,000 and $11,000 per kid in Woodridge? You're paying the rest of it per kid. That's local initiative. What else? Becky, you said earlier you were disappointed at the turnout. This morning, every Tuesday morning, I have a leadership team meeting with all the principals and supervisors and directors, and we get together and we have a conversation about what's happening in the district. And at the end of the meeting today, I said, okay, everybody, tell me how many people are going to be at our event tonight? And we all made a guess. And we had guesses everywhere from 16 to 116. Later on, I'll tell the person who won. I appreciate that you came out. You know, conversations start with two people and they spread. I love Mike's comment about, reaching out to 9 more people. I hope you will do that. I don't take it for granted that because you're here tonight, you're going to support our levy or the levy in Cuyahoga Falls or the initiatives in Manchester. This is my friend, Dr. Jim Robinson, the superintendent of the Manchester local schools, who came out tonight because he cares. He has the same issues in Manchester that we have in Woodridge and that you good folks have in Cuyahoga Falls. And there may be others here from other districts too, and I thank you for coming out. The hardest thing we have to do is set aside our time to go looking for money. I'd rather spend my time talking about teaching and learning, working with kids, working with parents and families to make sure the educational opportunities their kids have are the absolute best. I think we do a darn good job of that here. I really do. But I know we can't do it if we don't get more help. Yes, sir.
I got 2 questions. How many total levies do we have operating for Woodridge School? I know we just did a renewal, a couple of renewals, so how many are out there in total dollars?
He's grabbing his list.
While he's doing that, the second one is the funding being unconstitutional. Why is it taking since 1992? You can start pushing back onto the state. Just like if you have, like say, you break the law. But the judge said, until you find a new way to do this, keep doing it. So if I break the law, the cops just turn a blind eye because, well, I don't have any jail space for it.
Yeah.
So why is it taking so long?
Your frustration about that is exactly how we feel too. I wish I had the power to, do something to make that happen. But if you stop and think about it, I read this recently in a report that comes out every year. We as American citizens have a lot to say in criticism of our government. What you just said is exactly how I feel about it too. What the heck's taking so long? But when you ask people about their local representative, they keep voting for him. They say, oh, mine's good, but that one over there, pathetic, horrible. But I keep voting for mine. I'm not suggesting that we should necessarily clean house, but I'm telling you, let me give you an example. This will really get at your question. A couple of years ago, we were all whining in the public schools about testing. We still whine about testing. We could have a whole evening where I could stand here and whine about testing. My administrative team's sitting out here smiling at me because they know it's a joke. So a couple of years ago, we started the Common Core, no big deal. But then they started these tests called the park assessments. And we were all upset about that. We didn't like them. We thought they were a waste of time. And we complained. We went to our professional organizations. We went to ODE, the Ohio Department of Education. We moaned and groaned about the park tests. Do you know when it changed? And I mean no disrespect to soccer moms, but it changed when a bunch of soccer moms got in their vans, I kid you not, and they left Mason, Ohio, some other suburbs of Cincinnati, and they drove to Columbus, and they said, we've had enough of this park assessment. And within a few months, the park assessments were gone. The same thing is true with charter reform and school funding. If we really want to make a change, it's going to take not the superintendents standing up and moaning, but the citizens of the local school districts going to their representatives and saying, enough is enough. That's when they listen. They expect the superintendent to complain about funding. Of course they're going to. We never, we're always going to be looking at that. They expect school board members to complain about those things. But I've heard it directly from our own local legislators. We need to hear from our constituents. So as Mike said, and Bill said, and others said tonight, what I hope to do with Scott Carlo's help and our board's help is begin to mobilize our communities, not just Woodridge, but Cuyahoga Falls and Manchester and Hudson and Stowe and everybody, to call on our state legislature to do something to help us with these issues that we're facing. Only then will bills be introduced that make sense. I don't know if anybody else wants to.
I just want to say one time. The one piece I forgot to mention, and I learned this about 15 years ago. You're only pushing for 20% of the vote. 40% of your community is going to vote yes, and 40% of your community is going to vote no. I bet an awful lot of money on it. I don't have much, but I probably bet. And remortgaged my house to bet on it for sure. What we're really talking about is that 20% in the middle. That's the difference maker. So it's kind of like talking to legislators. I got a proposal in Central Ohio and I'm going to base it, I hate to be this sports guy. In Central Ohio, it's called OCC. And it's all that leagues, and it's all the schools. So the protocol schools have a league, the city schools have a league, if you add them all up. I want the OCC to convene their legislators, that group of legislators, and bring in their citizens to talk to them. You've got a very powerful league here. And you guys all talk to each other. And your ADs definitely talk to each other. If you want to do it and you convene 3, 4, or 5 legislators and you really put 100 people in the room, you can make change.
Sir, to answer your question on the number of levies that are out there, we have 7 issues that have been passed throughout the years at Woodridge. Those include the operating as well as the bond issues. And keep in mind, one of them will be coming off after 18, so at that point we'll have 6 issues out there.
That, by the way, is not unusual. That's pretty typical. Some of them are continuing and were passed years and years ago. Yes, ma'am. Well, as someone mentioned earlier, they look at the total property value of the entire community within the boundaries of the school district. And if you think of any school district, we're all very diverse. We all have different neighborhoods that make up that total. One of the unique things about Woodridge is the fact that such a huge part of our geography is the national park, which is a non-taxed federal parcel, right? Very large piece of property. So that plays a huge role too in the fact that it is not included in the total property value. So, you know, we are proud of all of our neighborhoods, all of our kids, the diversity that we have in our district based on where kids come from and who they are makes us stronger. But our total property wealth, because of the total, is considered one of the highest in Ohio. I'm blown away by that too. I think that's just mind-boggling. But actually, that report that I did last year, the richest school district in Ohio is a place called Olentangy Local, which is in Delaware County, just north of Columbus. If you've ever been to the Polaris Shopping Center there, Gemini Place, that's the Olentangy School District. Very up and coming. They're building new schools all the time. They're opening a new high school, he says. Right now, I think this will be their 4th high school in that community. They used to be farmland. There used to be nothing out there. Bill, you remember what Olentangy used to look like, right? Very rural. Now, it's crazy. So, total property value encompasses the whole community. Mike.
All right, so one last question. Okay, so I'm the governor. I mean, we have a governor, right? I haven't heard from Kasich in a while. But so I'm saying, okay, Wally and the other superintendents, fix it. What do you suggest? It's not an easy question, but if they were to get you all together finally and say, fix it. What's your solution? What's your solution?
We would be thrilled with that opportunity.
I'm just curious. I mean, eliminating charter schools is a big chunk, but that doesn't fix the property tax being, you know, that's not going away either. So I'm just curious, what would be some suggestions?
Well, yeah, you know, the Constitution provides that the state shall secure a thorough and efficient system. But I said earlier that there's only been 1 year in the last 50 years where the state funding has been more than the local funding for schools. The state funding on the average is about 43% of the total cost of education, 43%. In order to fix that, in order to fix the system, we're going to have to do two things. One is that we're going to have to match the cost of a basic education, a basic quality education, a high quality education, match that cost with the foundation formula. They have to match, the dots have to be connected. Now if you do that, the state revenue portion, the total funding for schools would have to be increased to 70 to 75%, from 43 to 70 to 75%. Now, what does that mean? That means additional tax revenue at the state level. But what have they done since 1985 with regard to the income tax? They've reduced it. And then they've reduced it again. And then again, and then again. Now, as mentioned earlier here, they removed the tangible property tax from schools at the local level. They put this commercial activity tax, or what they call the CAT tax on, that was supposed to refund the schools. But then it didn't happen. And so they've taken the refund away. You can't reduce taxes and maintain, appropriate levels of schooling. You just can't do it. You can't cut taxes to improve quality education. It just doesn't work. So, and besides that, the state has cut local government funds. They've cut cities, they've cut counties, they've cut townships, which means then some schools have to increase the services that they provide. So, and now, you know, it's nice for the state of Ohio to have $1.5 billion in a rainy day fund, but, you know, it's already raining out here. Bottom line is, the state has to increase its revenue to schools to overcome this valuation, you know, the variations in valuation, the disparity in valuation. The state has to, and it is a state responsibility, but, you know, we as people, you know, we end up electing the same people in the legislature all the time. We end up having the same kind of governors all the time. You know. Yeah.
If you weren't already angry about our funding stream, let me tell you one more little ditty. This one sends my blood pressure straight through the roof. We belong to an organization called the Alliance for High Quality Education. It's an exclusive group of school districts, most of whom receive very little state support. Recently, at the end of last school year, I got an invitation to go to a meeting of that organization. They had invited 27 superintendents for a specific purpose. We were given a document at the meeting that showed our revenue for pupil, so that's $735 amount. And we were told that the parochial schools in our district receive, I think it's $1,425 per student. Don't quote that number, but something like that. I'll put it out in one of my writings coming up. So what does that mean? That means that Immaculate Heart of Mary, whom we love, they're great neighbors, we do good work with them. Walsh Jesuit, St. Vincent St. Mary, Hoban, St. Joseph's, Redeemer Lutheran, etc., all get more state funding per pupil than the Woodridge local school district, the Copley Fairlawn City School District, the Revere local school district gets per pupil, and the others that are on the list. Well, I think the Constitution also talks about church and state and all that stuff too, so my mind is ready to blow up. How in the world can our friends at IHM be getting more per pupil funding than the local public school district in the community that it serves? Well, the state of Ohio has something in their funding called Administrative Services Reimbursement. And IHM, Redeemer, St. Luke's, all of them get administrative reimbursement for the mandates that they're required to report to Columbus. And they get more per child than we do, and we still have to do the same reporting that they have to do. So if your head wasn't about to explode before, add the parochial piece to it. By the way, I have told many of our parochial parents that. I just told a few more just now. And most of them had no idea. And I don't begrudge them their money. I mean, if the state is requiring them to do something, then the state should pay for it. They also ought to pay us for the things they require us to do. So, our friends who have students, send their students to the private schools. Remember, these aren't charter schools. These are private schools. Most of them are religious in nature. They get more funding per child than we do in the public school. Our friends in Copley and Revere, I think Twinsburg too, are in the same boat as we are. There are 27 districts in Ohio for whom that is true. So when I found out about this, I lost my mind. I literally lost my mind. And I called Christina Roedner and a couple other people in the legislature, and I said, what on earth are you telling me? I can't figure this out. And all 27 superintendents got together, and we all did that. We called a representative. And I have to give credit to Representative Roedner, because she drafted an amendment to the budget bill, and she submitted it on behalf of the 27 districts. along with several of her colleagues who signed on. And that thing was torn apart by the remaining legislators like you wouldn't believe. 2 years ago, Governor Kasich vetoed it. 4 years ago, the last biennium, he vetoed it. And this last time, it never made it to the final budget. We're going to try again and keep trying until we get at least as much per child as the parochial schools. Shouldn't we get at least as much as the private parochial schools are getting per student? So those of you who wonder, what in the world does a superintendent do all day? After I bring my blood pressure down, I go fight to try to get a level playing field for our students every day. Any other questions? You guys, you're all rock stars. I appreciate your help tonight. We're going to post information about all this on our website, Facebook page, Twitter, all that. Eric has videoed us up here rambling on and on, so if you're really bored and you want to watch it again, it'll be streamed on the website and Facebook page very soon. I hope we can count on you supporting the school district, whether it be issue 35 or issue 49? 29 in Cotton Falls. Are you on the ballot? 34. There you go, right behind us. That's good. We can't do it without the support of our community. Thank you for coming. Have a great night. Thank you to our speakers who drove up from Columbus